Yeah, they've been quite aggressive in this January market, haven't they? Getting the things that they need, the things that were at the top of their list, and that's one, not really easy to do in January, to find players available, but also to find players available who actually fit your style, and there actually is some longevity in potentially, well, Dragusin definitely, there's obviously longevity there coming on a permanent, but I know Timo Werner has the option at the end, but I've got a funny feeling that these two players will really suit Ange Postecoglou, and as Gail said there, they've been registered to be sort of thrown into the deep end at Old Trafford if need be, depending on other injuries or if Romero's back, etc., etc. But I just think that with Dragusin coming in and how we've heard how glowingly people have spoken about him, some of the attributes he possesses and some of the things he's saying he likes about Ange Postecoglou already, I think he can be a really good addition to this Tottenham side, and I think that with the way he plays versus how Ange wants Tottenham to be, if he needs to come in for Van der Ven or Romero, who clearly and rightly so are the starting two centre-backs, so you'll have to earn a starting place, and it's going to be really hard to displace those two when they're back at full fitness, because they've been absolutely brilliant, those two. Romero and Van der Ven's been a revelation himself. Yeah. Let's not forget him. He's potentially up for one of the signings of the season. But Dragusin adding in that extra depth in terms of what Ange Postecoglou wants, because he didn't want to see it or think it was there in Eric Dyer. And Timo Werner, OK, yes, Gail spoke about, just the 10 goals in his Chelsea career and the lack of being clinical in front of goal. But what he will give Ange Postecoglou in Spurs is movement, is tenacity, is being available to receive the ball and making line-breaking runs. And hopefully he can add that little bit of guile to his game at the end of it to get the goals. But I just think stylistically that can really work for Spurs, playing on the front foot, looking to smother teams, looking to play a high press and press from the front and be at it. And I think Timo Werner will do all right as well.
Yeah, I agree with what Flex is saying and the fact that they actually might fit in well with this Spurs side.
I think absolutely. And I think it's such a credit to Ange Postecoglou and what he's done so far, that the Spurs hierarchy is so desperate to appease him and get players in the door that he needs straight away. They had 3 priority areas in this window. Centre-back was the number 1. They've got somebody in already who can play this weekend, so we're not even halfway into January. They've got the centre-back situation sorted because they needed to. Mickey Van der Ven has been injured. He's just come back from injury. Christian Romero has had the suspensions and injuries as well. So Ben Davies and Emerson Royale have had to play in that position too. Left wing was an option they looked at as well, and Werner can play there. He probably will be playing on the left-hand side. Richarlison further forward. It is a case of can they get that midfield sorted, and then that will be an ideal window. But I don't think Ange Postecoglou can ask for much more. I don't think Spurs can ask for much more from him so far. Such a good feeling around that club at the moment when you compare to around other clubs in the Premier League at the moment. I think Spurs are in a really good position. All their recruitment so far has been exemplary, I think.
Yeah, Dan, James saying there it's sort of an ideal window. You've been looking at previous January windows for Tottenham. It's hard to say where it ranks so far because we don't know how these signings are going to turn out. But on the face of it, it looks like they've done a brilliant job so far.
Yeah, I think they've ticked 2 boxes that they needed to tick so far. They've kind of got cover for Son across January and February whilst he's missing at the Asian Cup. But also with Werner, I think it's a low-risk option for them. I think the worst thing that's going to happen with Timo Werner is that he makes their bench stronger, which is a good position.
Yeah, because everyone's back fit again, he can drop
which is a great position to be in. And I actually think sometimes as a footballer, you're a product of your environment, and maybe Chelsea wasn't the most stable environment for Werner. He was in and out of the team, playing in different positions. And we've seen with Chelsea since, Timo Werner's not the only player to miss chances for Chelsea. It's a problem that they've still got now a few years on. So I think Werner coming into that environment under Postecoglou, who's already shown what a great man manager he is, I think he'll come in and he'll improve them. And on with Flex, I've got a really good feeling about these 2 signings. But you look at signings they made last January, Pedro Porro coming in on loan. I don't think he was a Conte signing. I think he was a club signing. But he struggled a bit under Conte and he struggled under Ryan Mason. Postecoglou gets hold of him. And I said earlier, he has been up there with Trent Alexander-Arnold in the level of his performances so far this season. I actually think Porro is arguably one of Spurs' most important players. If you take him out, there's no one who can come in from that side and do the same things that he does. So he's had 10 players come in under his watch, Postecoglou. Spurs are heading in the right direction completely. Everyone is pulling in the same direction, which is massive, which helps you create a little bit of momentum. And I think Spurs have got that now. They've still got players to come back from injury as well, like James Maddison, who they've been out with for a few months. So if Spurs can just navigate January, maybe even just get one more signing in to boost that midfield, I think they've got a really strong chance of getting top 4, top 5 and qualifying for the Champions League.
But also, it goes back to Ange Postecoglou in terms of the belief that you put in the fans. So paint this picture, for example. Say Spurs weren't doing as well and the new manager hadn't had this rapport with the fans, and then they see sort of Timo Werner coming in, obviously ex-Chelsea. I think a lot of Tottenham fans probably are like...
Underwhelming.
I tell you what, I probably wouldn't have chose Timo Werner. But I tell you what, Ange wants him. Ange wants him, and I'll do anything for Ange. Look what he's given us. He's given us great moments already. He's got a belief around the place. His signings have worked already, so you'll get behind it if you're a Spurs fan. And I think his job shouldn't be underestimated of what he's done to galvanise the fans in such a short space of time, to the fact that Timo Werner is coming into the club. And a lot of Spurs fans will say, OK, you know what, I maybe wouldn't have chosen that, but I'm going to believe in what Ange has done, because players that, like, Spurs fans wanted to leave, Emerson Royal and Ben Davies, players like this, they've seen them come into positions that they're not really acquainted to playing, in a style that they're not really acquainted to playing. And Ange Postecoglou's got a massive tune out of them. So why would they not think that Timo Werner could come in and be a hit? So, yeah, I think it's testament to the job that Ange Postecoglou's done.
Yeah, and Dan touched on it a minute ago about kind of momentum, about them almost this window setting them up to, have a run at hopefully Champions League football for next season. The fact that they're, in a way, maybe more likely to make the top four. As a rival fan, do you look at what Spurs are doing this window, as a rival fan of a club who are trying to battle out for top four as well, and look at say, just what they're doing, they're set up well to do that.
Absolutely, just intense. The feeling around, if you're looking at Spurs from the outside in as a rival fan, you're looking at them and saying, as soon as they get players back as well, you saw how they were performing when they had a full complement of players, and you knew that obviously there were a few injuries away from maybe falling off. But actually, I think after the Chelsea game, they went on a little bad run of maybe 1 win in 4 or 5, I think it was, and then they managed to stabilise from that, and then they find themselves 1 point behind Arsenal after all of that. And then they've still got players to come back. So if you're a rival fan looking at it, you have to say, of course, it just intensifies the competition, along with Aston Villa, who are still in there, who are going to be in there for a long while, probably won't drop out of there.
That's a massive thing. That,
absolutely.
Like, Villa and Spurs, Villa are obviously a little bit ahead of Spurs now because they've had Emery for longer, but if you get in the perfect manager...
You can get instant results.
You can build that momentum really quickly, and the feel-good of everyone being on the same page. It does pull you up, and Manchester United probably had the opposite of that, because everything hasn't been on the same page there, and it drags you down.
It weren't bad last season. It was giving Everton...
It's
not all bad this season.
No, fair enough.
But I understand what you're saying. You're exactly right. So when you're looking at it, you're thinking it's more work for the likes of Man United to do. Newcastle, we'll talk about later on in the show, they've got more work to do. West Ham want to stay in and around there. Brighton want to try and get there. And you're looking at Spurs now and you're like, harder to catch.
Yeah. Do you think it's likely that they will get this midfielder in?
I think that would cap off the perfect transfer window for Tottenham. I think the fans are happy with what they've seen so far. They're not used to Spurs signing players so early in January, if signing players at all. The fact they've got 2 players who could make their debut this weekend is remarkable when you consider the last 10 years at Spurs. And Dan did a great piece earlier on this morning looking at some of the players that they brought in previous windows. A number of those have been on deadline days. I think a lot may depend on potential outgoings as well. Central midfield is an area they'd like to strengthen in, because Yves Bissouma is out. The AFCON, he's also suspended for a number of games, so he won't play for Spurs until February. Same with Sarr. Maddison out for a while as well. Hopefully he's coming close to getting come back into the side. But I think ideally Conor Gallagher's the player they've been looking at. He's someone who really is of interest, and there's been conversations there, but he's not going to come cheap. Chelsea may be looking to potentially sell him if they want to try and bring something themselves, because from a financial fair play point of view, if they can sell Conor Gallagher for, say, £40 million, that's going to be pure profit. Less than 18 months left on his contract as well. So that's definitely one to watch over the coming weeks. And if they do bring in a player, then maybe Pierre-Emile Højbjerg could leave the club. Lo Celso was a player who we thought may potentially depart in the summer, may potentially depart in January, but he's been so impressive in the last
Getting a tune out of him again, that's another
weeks.
player
So
I forgot
he
to
seems
mention.
like a player. Barcelona have been interested in him, but I don't think Ange Postecoglou wants him going anywhere.